The bill was defeated, but early legislative efforts encouraged others around the country to speak out. In Minnesota, a respected gynecologist was appalled by the number of women she saw admitted to the hospital following botched abortions.
I gradually began to think, well, this is horrible medicine that we're practicing. This isn't the way I was taught in public health classes in medical school, that we should be able to do something about this.
Dr. Hodgson testified before legislative committees and also spoke at conferences in an attempt to reach other doctors.
The real moral and medical question is whether women should have abortions humanely and safely in our hospitals, or whether we should continue our degrading system of unwanted pregnancies and criminal abortions. I'm tired of having half the world tell the other half what they should do with their own bodies.
The hypocrisy got to me. Well-to-do women always could have them. They would go to England or Canada or wherever. They could go and get. They could arrange it, but it was absolutely impossible for the young and the poor.
Dr. Hodgson's testimony failed to sway the Minnesota legislature, but she was not deterred. Several years later, she would openly defy the law. The New York law was an inspiration to Dr. Hodgson, who decided to take on her state's law once again.
It seemed to me that I was naive, of course, but the only thing that was necessary to do is to find a perfect test case that the public could condone and would see the reason why, and that Minnesota then would change their law. I thought it would be that easy.
An opportunity to act came when a pregnant patient contracted German measles. Knowing the risks of congenital deformity, she asked Dr. Hodgson to perform an abortion.
I suggested sending her to Mexico, or referring her to the clergy counseling service is what we were doing then. And she said, no, I want you to do it, and I think I have that right.
Dr. Hodgson asked the courts to let her perform an abortion on Nancy Widmeyer, but they took too long. On April 29th, Dr. Hodgson went ahead without them.
The federal judges were not particularly sympathetic, so I was indicted, and the trial and all followed.
The first day of court, the prosecution calls witnesses to show Dr. Hodgson performed the abortion. The defense doesn't dispute it. Instead, they begin to argue that the law interferes with individual privacy. It is Friday afternoon and the end of this trial. Judge Jerome Plunkett finds Dr. Hodgson guilty and refuses to submit the case to the Minnesota Supreme Court. The question is, when courts will agree abortion is something to be decided by a doctor and a patient.